Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My Karen roommate refuses to let me have pets. After that, I'm your new manager and you'll listen to me. No, I really won't. And after that, my boyfriend dumped me over the dumbest reason ever. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to stop anyone from having pets. I've already got you, Reddit boy. Why would I need 2 dogs? So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My Karen roommate refuses to let me have pets. I, 22 female, live with a friend from college to save money. We've usually gotten along pretty well. I've mentioned to her before that I was possibly thinking about getting ferrets. We had some when I was little and I wanted them again. She sort of begged me not to because she said they smell god-awful and she just can't stand it. I have almost no sense of smell, so it wouldn't even bother me, but I said if it meant that much to her, I could wait until we had our own places to live. She has a cat, and recently she hasn't been as consistent with the litter box cleanings as she was in the past. I get that she's been super busy, and 90% of the time she does fine, but a couple times she went too long, and the cat did its business in the living room, which grosses me out. The second time it happened, I got a bit upset, and she apologized and said that she would try to be better. She asked if I could help clean the box if she did forget, and that it would be a lot easier for me without much of a sense of smell, but I refused since it's her pet. When it happened again a month later, I told her that if it happened again, I'd be getting pet ferrets. Not as like a punishment, but I'm not going to go out of my way to keep the apartment free from pet smells or whatever if she's showing it's not really a priority for her. She got upset, but said she'd do better. She did, but 2 months later, it happened again. I didn't give her a warning. When she was out of town one weekend, I bought 4 pet ferrets. When she got back, she was practically crying, saying the stench was overwhelming and everything stinks, and begged me to get rid of them. I said no. Sorry, I warned you what the consequences would be, and I'm not just going to abandon them now. I figured she'd get used to the smell anyway, but it's been a week and she's still pretty upset, saying I don't understand how nauseating it is since I can't smell, and that this punishment is totally disproportional to any grossness her cat could ever produce. Am I the jerk? 4 ferrets? Just thinking about that smell nauseates me. The smell has probably seeped into your roommate's stuff and yours too. Do you work outside the home? If so, I bet your manager is writing a "Would I be the jerk" about telling you that you are the stinky weird person at work. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. Just because her cat would have an accident maybe once a month that you can't even smell, now you want to stink up the whole apartment for her? No, she won't just get used to the ferret stink. Most people really can't take it. It's not like cat smell at all. You're the jerk. I hope you can afford to live alone when your lease is up, because I can guarantee you that literally no one else will be willing to live with you and 4 ferrets in an apartment. You also just lost a friend, and you'll probably be distanced from some more. Not just because of your jerk behavior, but also because you're going to start stinking like ferrets, and many people struggle to tolerate that smell. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their roommate? Please let us know. Ain't no way I'm gonna live with someone with 3 ferrets. But also, roommate needs to keep that litter box clean. I can't stand irresponsible pet owners. I'm your new manager and you'll listen to me. No, I really won't. Bit of background before I start. This story happened when I was still working as a machinist back when I was 19. I started that job on second shift, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., but was transferred to weekend shift, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., barely 6 months later. And the manager for weekend was an older man, we'll call him Jay. This is important for later. Since weekend was severely understaffed, we were each put in charge of multiple machines. I was in charge of running 4 machines that formed a big block in a corner of the factory that hardly anyone ever went to. One Friday morning, as I was setting up my machines, a short, rotund man with a Vernon Dursley mustache walked up to me and tapped me on the shoulder. Surprised that I had a visitor, I pulled my head out of the machine and greeted him. We've got entitled manager. Me. Hi, can I help you with something? Entitled manager. I'm his name. Me. Okay, nice to meet you. I'm OP. I hold out my hand for him to shake, which he ignores. Entitled manager. Yeah, I'm just looking around, trying to get a feel for the place, you know? Me. Understandable, I guess. I trailed off. not really sure what he wanted and knowing I had about 20 minutes to get the machines going before I fell behind on my work order.
You've got a pretty nice setup here. I wouldn't have known there was anyone working back here if I hadn't wandered over this way.
Me, I guess.
I bet you have fun back here. You can just slack off all day, and no one comes by to bother you.
He laughs in a kind of condescending way. Me. Sorry, but is there a point to this conversation, or can I finish setting up? Yeah, I probably could have been a bit more tactful here, but I worked my butt off, and I had the highest job completion rate out of every shift who ran those machines, which was quite a feat, considering I was alone and the other shifts had between 2 and 4 people running those same machines. Entitled manager sneers at me.
You don't know who I am, do you?
Me. Nope. Should I?
Yeah, you should. I'm your new boss.
Me. I stare at him for a second, then laugh. Really? Did Jay finally retire?
What? Jay? What's he got to do with this?
Me. Jay's my manager. It was at this moment I realized he had gotten ahead of himself and didn't even know who he was in charge of yet.
No, he's not. I am. I was just promoted to first shift manager. That means you work for me.
Me. No, that's not what that means, I said slowly. I'm on weekend shift, not first, so you're not my boss. Jay is.
If you're weekend, then why are you running first shift's equipment?
He asked me in an aha, gotcha kind of way. Me. This is where I've been assigned. You want specifics? You're gonna have to ask the manager. I didn't choose which machines I run.
I am your manager.
Me. No, you're not. Now, can I please get back to work? Entitled manager steps into my personal space and looks up at me with a frown on his face, like it was somehow my fault that I was a foot taller than he was.
I'm the first shift manager.
Me. Good for you, man, and I mean that, but that doesn't mean you're my manager. He pokes me in the chest.
I'm the first shift manager. That means you have to listen to me.
Me. I look down at his finger, then take a step back so he isn't touching me anymore. Don't do that. Entitled manager, seemingly amused by my response, steps closer and tries to poke me again. It was at that moment that my actual manager showed up. Jay. What's going on, OP? Machines ready to get moving? Me. Not yet. I was just being introduced to entitled manager here. Guess I got distracted. Jay sees how irritated I look and quickly realized what was going on. Is that right? Hey, entitled manager, why don't you let me introduce you to the other weekend guys? OP's got to get these machines going so he can make rate. Entitled manager smirks at me.
Yeah, sure. Have a good day, OP. I'll see you later.
Jay leads him away and I get back to work without any more interruptions for the rest of my shift. But entitled manager had apparently decided that my defiance was unacceptable and something he needed to personally correct. So I hadn't seen the last of him just yet. Over the next 5 months, every encounter with entitled manager went about the same way. He would try to give me orders, I would refuse, and he would keep pressing until I got irritated. But eventually, Jay got tired of hearing entitled manager complain about me not listening to him and called me into the office for a chat. He basically told me to just suck it up and do what he asked, that it was only because I wasn't listening to him that he kept bugging me, and that if I just gave in, he would get bored eventually and leave me alone. So I begrudgingly went along with it and started doing all of the BS tasks he wanted me to do. These tasks included painting tables for first shift, fixing entire baskets full of parts that first shift messed up, shoveling brass chips from a wheelbarrow to a barrel for absolutely no reason, and setting up machines for first shift. And I was expected to do those while still doing my own job. If I didn't really need the money, I would have quit the moment Jay told me to go along with his BS. But since I didn't, entitled manager only got more brazen as time went on. Things finally came to a head one Saturday morning. Someone on third shift had forgotten to lock up the machine after a sensor malfunctioned, so I went about setting it up for the next order code like I always did, completely unaware of the time bomb I had my head inside of. One of the pneumatic doors bugged out due to the faulty sensor and slammed shut on my hand. I should mention I had the machine in setup mode, which should have stopped that from happening. But that's why it's so important to lock out a machine when there's a sensor or an electrical issue in those machines. I was lucky my hand wasn't crushed. As it was, my hand basically turned into a single giant bruise that even made it down to the bones. With the help of another coworker, I got my hand out and went and reported the accident to Jay. Company policy stated that I had to go to the hospital to have it checked out. After having the machine inspected, Jay knew I couldn't have done anything to prevent it, but I still had to go take a drug test after the hospital visit as a formality. Well, entitled manager got wind that I was involved in the accident and decided now would be a great time to press his luck. He comes barging into Jay's office, demanding to know why I was stupid enough to put my hand inside a machine that everyone knew was messed up. Me, because I didn't know it was messed up. Entitled manager.
That's BS. You just wanted an excuse to go home.
I ignored him and kept my eyes focused on Jay while he finished filling out my paperwork.
I always knew you were a wimp, but this is a new level, even for you, OP. What, you can't stand working like a real man, so you're just going home?
I keep ignoring him.
Hey, OP. OP, I'm talking to you.
He steps around in front of me and pokes me in the chest while still ranting at me. Him touching me was the last straw. Me.
Jay, get this stupid jerk out of my face. Oh, you've done it now, he said triumphantly. You can't talk to me like that. I'm a manager. I'll have you fired.
Me. Do it. Please, for the love of God, fire me. Jay. OP, calm down. Just think about what you're saying. Me. Jay, I swear, if he's still in this office in 3 seconds, I'm going to pick up this chair, and I'm not going to stop until it's broken or he is. That shut entitled manager up, for a minute anyway. Entitled manager.
Jay, are you going to let him talk to me like that? He just threatened me.
Jay. Entitled manager, I'd advise you to shut up and leave. OP's a big guy, and I'm too old to try and stop him if he decides to follow through. Entitled manager darted out of the room a few seconds later. Jay, you know you can't threaten people like that, OP. I'll back you up this time because he was out of line, but I won't be able to protect you next time. Me. Yeah, thanks, Jay. I'll call you when I leave the hospital, I said before leaving the office and driving myself 20 miles to the nearest hospital. Entitled manager never tried to harass me after that day. In fact, he did his best to avoid going anywhere near me after that day. But he didn't exactly learn his lesson either. I'll tell that story if anyone is interested in it. Update. So, unfortunately, a few months after my accident, I was moved to a different department. This one dealt almost exclusively with lead products, while I had mostly worked with steel and lead-free products before then. Turns out, I'm pretty allergic to being absolutely covered in lead dust, so I was told they couldn't risk having me in the department anymore and let me go. To this day, I think the only reason I was moved was because of my altercation with entitled manager, but I don't have any proof. Now, a few of you asked why entitled manager was able to get away with so much. The reason for that is simple. Nepotism. Entitled manager's dad was head of the foundry for the better part of 30 years, and while he didn't have quite as much pull as the owners, he was well liked and most people treated his word as law. So entitled manager was given a job straight out of high school and he had never worked anywhere else. His dad covered for him at every opportunity until the day he retired. Then his friends continued the trend. There was one incident where entitled manager took a hammer to a vending machine and the plant manager bought a new one without so much as a harsh look in entitled manager's direction. There was a whole mess surrounding my leaving that ended with the plant manager and entitled manager lying to a judge about why I left. They tried to say that I was a bad employee who didn't deserve my unemployment wages, which ultimately led to a trial, which I won. Now, most of this information comes from a few of my friends that still worked at the factory, but I know it's true because it made it to the local papers. The plant manager, the one who had been protecting entitled manager, had his power severely stripped after the crap storm with the judge settled. He had an assistant plant manager assigned to help him manage his workload, which is a fancy way of saying they tasked someone with watching him. Because his biggest backer was essentially taken out of the picture, entitled manager didn't enjoy the same leeway he did with me. In fact, it seemed the new plant manager really didn't like entitled manager. So when entitled manager pushed another guy a little too far one day, and he had a hammer wrench chucked at his head hard enough to shatter a window, the thrower was just written up for breaking the window instead of fired or arrested for assault. About 8 months after I left, the plant manager who'd been protecting entitled manager was let go by the company, and for good reason. He'd had the plant making parts that they didn't even have orders for. And for those who don't know, at the end of the year when it's time to report the earnings and inventory to the IRS, you actually have to pay for the inventory you have on hand, presumably as estimated income since it's assumed you had orders for them. They had 10 30-foot tall, 40-foot wide shelves full of baskets of parts ready to be sold, and not one of them had an order code assigned to them. So the plant manager was gone after that blunder. An intelligent person would have realized after that it was time to stop being a jerk to people and that they were well and truly alone in the factory. But no, not entitled manager, he didn't learn a darn thing. Despite hammer wrenches being thrown at him, his tires mysteriously going flat 5 times in a month, and pretty much everyone in the factory hating his guts. Why he wasn't just fired, I honestly don't know, but he wasn't, until the day he landed the company in ever more hot water. So there was a truck driver who had been working for the parent company of the factory for 20-something years. He was a well-liked, soft-spoken man who had never been so much as written up in his 20 years. He was also black, which is important for this next part. We'll call the truck driver TD for simplicity's sake. This story was told to me by my friend G, who was a machinist. He was working about 10 feet away from truck driver when this happened. One day, while truck driver was waiting for his truck to be loaded up, entitled manager spots him standing around on his phone. I heard he was talking to his wife, but I don't actually know. Entitled manager:
Hey, what are you doing?
Truck driver pulls his phone away from his ear. I'm waiting for my truck to be loaded. Do you need something? Entitled manager:
Well, if you don't have anything better to do while you wait, how about you go grab a broom and start sweeping? You know, actually make yourself useful for something other than blocking the path?
Truck driver: Oh, was I blocking you? Sorry, I didn't realize. Tries to move out of the way.
Didn't you hear me? I said grab a broom and start sweeping.
That's not my job, man. But look, if I'm bothering you, I'll just wait outside until my truck is ready, okay? Entitled manager:
That's what I hate about you.
Definitely not saying that.
You're always trying to do anything you can to get out of work.
Truck driver hangs up his phone and tucks it in his pocket. Don't do that again.
Do what?
You know darn well what you did. I don't know what kind of bad day you're having, but don't use that word. Entitled manager steps closer to truck driver.
What'd you say to me?
Truck driver, not backing down. I said, don't use that word. Entitled manager:
What are you going to do about it if I do?
Then he called him it again. He said while poking him in the chest. What truck driver did was immediately after that word left entitled manager's mouth a second time, he punched him. Now, I've heard conflicting stories about this part. Some say he jumped on entitled man's chest and proceeded to beat him up until someone could get him off of him. But G claims that he only hit him once, and that one punch really messed him up. Just for good measure, there was a forklift parked behind entitled manager at the time, and that's what cushioned his fall. The forklift driver sitting in the driver's seat swears he thought he'd been rear-ended by another forklift after entitled manager fell onto him. An ambulance was called, entitled manager was rushed to the hospital to undergo emergency surgery, and truck driver was, unfortunately, arrested for assault. Don't worry though. Remember that plant manager who didn't like entitled manager? He was at home at the time it happened, but he made it to the factory before truck driver was taken away in handcuffs. He personally dropped a few $100s and went around to everyone in the factory with a collections bag, asking them to donate to pay truck driver's bail fund. He had raised over 10 grand in less than an hour and had truck driver bailed out in 3. Truck driver sued the company for emotional damages, discrimination, and a couple of other things. Then he retired with the money he got from the case. There were a lot of people who backed up his word that entitled manager started it. And as for entitled manager, he was fired before he woke up from his surgery's anesthetic. The plant manager personally drove almost an hour on his day off to tell entitled manager the good news in person, and then waited for him to wake up just to make sure he got it. He applied to several other management positions in the local area, but he had burned a crap ton of bridges during his life, and no one would hire him. Entitled manager now works as a food vendor at a traveling carnival. I still see him once a year when the carnival comes to town, and he scowls at me every time like I personally ruined his life. That look is the only reason I still go to that carnival. My boyfriend dumped me over the dumbest reason ever. My sister is getting married on a Friday night, and my boyfriend's birthday is the same weekend, that Sunday. He's turning 29, and this would be his 3rd birthday we were together for. Usually for his birthday, we drive to the beach and spend the day there. He was hoping to do the same this year. However, for my sister's wedding, my family planned to rent a house right near the venue for a long weekend, so we didn't feel rushed. We got a house for Wednesday night through Sunday morning. Obviously, my boyfriend is invited to the wedding and would be staying with me in the house my family rented if he chooses to. And obviously, we would get cake and go out to dinner, etc. for his birthday while we were at the rental house. He wants to leave the rental house on Saturday, a day early, so we can drive home, which is 3 hours, and then drive to the beach the next morning for his birthday, 1.5 hour drive. I want to spend the whole weekend with my family, and I don't want to leave early. My sister's getting married. She's my best friend, and I don't want to miss out on anything. I feel like Saturday we're all going to be a little bit hungover. We will probably take naps and spend the day talking about everything that happened at the wedding. The house has a pool and a hot tub, a pool table, a fire pit, etc. So we wanted to spend the day hanging out, relaxing, and reminiscing on the wedding. I don't want to get up that day, pack up my stuff, and rush home just to pack again for the beach and have to wake up early the next morning to drive to the beach. He feels like by Sunday the wedding is over, and now it's his birthday, so I should be focusing on him instead of my sister. I said his birthday happens once every year, compared to my sister's wedding being a once-in-a-lifetime event. I offered to go to the beach the next day, Monday, or the next weekend, etc., but he only wants to go on his birthday. He's turning 29 years old, and I feel like he should understand how important this event is to my family and to me, and he shouldn't want to drag me away from it. He broke up with me because I refused to leave a day early. I'm so frustrated why he can't see how important this is to me and how excited I am to be there and spend time with my family. My parents and I also split the cost of the rental, so for me to leave early would be a waste of my money. He doesn't care about that because he didn't have to pay. Even though he'd be staying there with us, I didn't ask him to pay his share because he's unemployed and doesn't have money for that. Not the jerk. Your boyfriend is a grown, nearly 30-year-old adult and can't wait a couple of days to celebrate his birthday? He's never had a responsibility or something come up and had to move celebrations a bit? This is your sister's, hopefully only, wedding, and you're 100% right to want to celebrate it with her. It's really kind of childish and selfish to expect your significant other to just drop everything over a birthday trip that could be done literally any time and be celebrated the exact same way. The fact that he broke up with you over it and didn't even entertain a conversation about it is a massive red flag. Not the jerk. Please don't get back together with him. This is such icky, weird behavior. The comments that are saying you're the jerk are weird, and I also wouldn't want to date them. Don't feel bad, feel relieved. Congratulations on being single, and here's to finding someone 10,000 times better. No regrets. Do not leave the spill unattended. A story of malicious compliance from many years ago when I was a teenager. Less than 1 year into my retail job where I did recovery, basically tidying up your allocated department so it was neat and presentable for the following day. There was a rule that if you found a spillage on the floor, you had to have one person stay and guard the spill so that no customer would come along and slip in it, and one person to go and get the cleaning supplies cart to clean it up. Or if it wasn't in its place and you couldn't find it, then at least one of those yellow caution slippery floor signs to be put there. On the day of this malicious compliance, I was working in the household cleaning section, which was right in the back corner of the store. About halfway into my 3-hour shift, I walked into an aisle and I discovered a bottle of dishwashing liquid had been knocked off the shelf and pretty much exploded, leaving a pale yellow sheen of liquid that covered almost the entire middle of the aisle. I thought about the rule for a moment and then realized that because of where my department was, I would be waiting a very long time for another staff member to even realize there was a spill, let alone help, and that it was unlikely customers would go down that aisle in the next few minutes anyway. So I walked out of the aisle and went to go find the cleaning stuff, but only got a few meters away from the spill when I bumped into the store manager, who we'll call Ray. We had the following conversation, paraphrased a bit since this was from around 20 years ago. Ray: how are you going with your department? Me: good, but there's a spill in the dishwashing aisle, so I'm just going to get the cleaning cart. Ray: who's standing to watch over it? Me: no one. The other staff don't really come up here, so I was going to quickly go and… Ray: no, you don't leave spills unattended. What if a customer comes along and trips in it? Go back and stay there, and make sure any customers who go down that aisle are aware of it. Me: okay, in that case, can you please go get me the cleaning trolley so I can clean it up? Ray: no, I need to go to a meeting upstairs. Just wait for another staff member to come past and ask them to get it for you. In the meantime, don't leave the spill unattended. Me: but I was trying to say that because of how out of the way my department was, it was unlikely another staff member would come past, but he had walked off before I finished talking. About 20 minutes before the recovery shift ended, when Ray had gone home for the day and the store had closed, the night manager Lucy was doing her rounds. When she got to the dishwashing aisle, she stopped. Lucy: why are you just standing there? You haven't finished more than half of your department. Me: there's a spill. Lucy: Well, why didn't you clean it up? Me. I tried, but Ray told me off. I explained to her what had happened, and she rolled her eyes and told me to go and get the cleaning cart so that she could clean it up after she let all the recovery staff go home. After that, they brought in a rule where if you had a spill and there were no staff around, you were allowed to either leave a shopping basket over it or create a makeshift barrier around it with stock so that you could go and get the cleaning supplies yourself. Lose your temper on the hotel staff? Kiss your job goodbye. I've moved from working as a waitress to working hotel. I've been doing it for 4 months now. There are similarities and there are differences. Both jobs you have to deal with jerks. I was a waitress, but mostly hostess in the restaurant industry, so now I work front desk. Oh, the joys. Sitting people is similar to checking people into rooms. My backstory over. The hotel I work for has had the fortune of being booked out for 3 months by a company, trial basis, and if things work out, it could turn into a year-long contract. Thus far, everything has been running smooth, and we like these people and they like us. When I first started, I of course experienced all types of people, and my experience as a waitress/hostess has taught me very well how to handle them. Since this company bought us out, very rarely do we get the Karens. It's been 2 months into this arrangement. A week ago, at around 8-ish, I check a gentleman in, explain how things work. He goes to his room. My shift is about to end, and my relief arrives. He's always early. It's 10:55 p.m. The gentleman, I shall now name K, calls the front desk. My relief, who shall be named R for relief, answers the phone and puts it on speaker. "Hi," he says. "I checked in a few hours ago, and I don't like this room." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear this, sir," R says. "What's the problem with the room?" "It's just too loud. I can hear the highway. I want to get a quieter room, not facing the highway." "Well, sir, it is a bit late, and most of our rooms are checked in. But if you could give us a moment, we will call you back if we can find a room for you." R and K hang up. I'm trying to get all my things done so I can leave. R is trying to get everything settled for his night auditing. "We shouldn't give him another room," I tell R. "It's not that I don't want to help the guests, I really do, but we're limited on rooms, and we have like 10 more reservations they booked their people for. Also, since he's settled in his room for a while, I don't have housekeeping around to clean it up and give it to the next guest. It's not like we're expecting these 10 people to show up this late, but you never know. They might show up and one of them will be out of a room. Just look for me," he says. So I do as requested, and I find a room while also not sacrificing one of the 10. It's a courtyard-facing room. Yeah, let's all dance. I make all the changes and call the guy to inform him we have found him a room not facing the highway. "Hello, Kay. This is front desk. We have a room for you," I cheerfully inform him. The clock strikes 11 p.m. and I'm exhausted and I want to go home, but I want to make sure this is settled before I leave. "What room is it?" So I tell him. Here, the fun part begins. "No, I don't want that room," he informs me. "It will be near the lobby, and during the daytime, the lobby will be too loud." I take a moment to collect myself. "Well, I'm sorry, sir," I say with my best sugary goodness voice ever, because my "I will hurt you" voice wants to come out, and I know that could lose us this contract, and thus far, I want to keep this contract, because until this moment, I haven't had to deal with any jerks. It's refreshing. "But you want a courtyard-facing room. I found you a courtyard-facing room. It is 11 p.m. tonight, and if you are unaware, we are booked solid and are limited on the rooms we have available." R stops what he's doing, and his interest is piqued. He comes forward and places the call on speaker so he can hear. K stops using his friendly voice. "Well, that is unacceptable," he says. "I demand a better room, because I'm not staying in this room because it's too loud and I refuse to take the other room." R, who has been with this hotel for such a long time, starts to chime in, and I can see that he's ready to match this guy's tone. I stop him. My waitressing and hosting skills have come forward. I want to make sure I get my tip while also putting someone in their place. Still in my best sugary goodness voice that will get you cavities, I respond, "Well, sir, it is late, and like I've said, we cannot accommodate your request. If you had checked in earlier, like at 3 p.m., he cuts me off. "Well, I wasn't here at 3 p.m. I checked in at 8 p.m. Now it's time for him to insert company into this. "I work for blank, and I demand I get this service. My company is paying for me to stay here.
and I want a better room.
I continue as if he didn't interrupt me. I would have been able to switch rooms for you as I had plenty of rooms facing courtyard, but you checked in late. It is 11 p.m. and unfortunately, because your company has booked the whole hotel, almost every room. Once again, he's cutting me off. R is ready, wanting to speak, but I shake my head. I whisper, I got this.
I work for Blank Company, and I want a different room,
He says, nearly yelling. I wonder if people are aware that you yelling makes us want to help you less. Again, continuing as if he never interrupted me. Is booked. Now I have found a room for you and it is yours. So you can either take this room or stay in yours. He grows silent because he knows I'm not budging. Finally, he speaks.
This is unacceptable. I will let Blank know about this.
So are you staying in your room or switching rooms?
Well, I don't want that room, and you're being a jerk and not finding me a better room.
It takes every ounce of energy for me not to lose it on this guy. So I'm a jerk because I can't give you something I don't have? Well, sir, I begin and have resorted to my favorite, treating him like a first-grade teacher treats a little kid. We don't use that kind of language. When we aren't getting our way, we should express ourselves in other ways. I'm truly sorry that it's very late at night and we cannot accommodate you. And I'm so sorry to tell you, but the room I was trying to offer you is no longer available. It was given away.
I'm ticked, and I will let the company know about this.
Well, I am sorry, sir, and please feel free to tell your company this. I will be surely telling them about this interaction as well and telling them that you've used this kind of language with me. I hope he hangs up. Like, dude, you're asking late at night and think we can do it? R applauds me and says, girl, if it was me, I would have done things differently, but I love your approach. I put in my report about the whole conversation, and the next day when I come in, my manager pulls me aside and tells me the guest complained about me to the company saying I wasn't being accommodating. Boss said he read my report, looked at everything, talked to R, and guess what? His room is no longer occupied. I found out a couple days later the guy got fired for being rude. What these people don't know is that his company told us to tell them when they're being unkind to us because if they are, they're fired. If they can be rude to us, then they don't want them working for them. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.